Welcome to KeepItReal Studios, the only channel on YouTube that keeps it real. Throughout countless decades, there's been multiple adaptations of Spider-Man. Whether it was from the comic series, to the cartoons, to the live-action movies, there are many adaptations of Spider-Man to look at and get inspiration from. Arguably, one of the most iconic representations of Spider-Man came from the Sam Raimi films. Spider-Man will always be an iconic character. People have their own ideas and their own ideals of what Spider-Man should represent and who Spider-Man should be. And it seems that a lot of people truly believe that the Sam Raimi trilogies are arguably the best representation of Spider-Man ever. The Sam Raimi trilogy is arguably one of the most iconic trilogies out there. Whether or not if you're the biggest fan or the biggest hater, you know about it, you've arguably seen it, or you've just seen countless posts and medias about it. I truly believe that the Sam Raimi trilogy is probably one of the most overrated pieces out there. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. I feel like nowadays a lot of people don't really know the true definition of what overrated means. And the dictionary describes overrated as that person or thing is considered to be better or more important than they really are. And I truly believe that describes the Sam Raimi trilogy. A lot of people nowadays, they think when something's overrated, it means a lot of people think it's a bad thing. But I don't think so. So, when it comes to the Sam Raimi movies overall, I truly believe when it first came out, it was definitely a time-changing classic and forever will be. But as the years go by, it's really not what it is anymore. You know, when you look back on it, it tends to be a little bit corny, cheesy, campy, and sometimes outdated. And if we're looking at the current landscape of the MCU, most of the biggest criticisms we hear about it is, it's corny, it's cheesy, the jokes don't hold up, and they're just appealing to a form of media and a lot of people that we don't really associate those superheroes with in the first place. So this is what I mean. I feel like a lot of things hated about superheroes in general is what people loved about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogies in the first place. Nostalgia. I truly believe that this is the driving force of what made Sam Raimi's Spider-Man so special. When you ask people what are their thoughts and opinion on Spider-Man overall, they usually have a nostalgic feeling towards it. They usually tend to reminisce on their past and their former life that they had once they saw that movie in the first place. And even the same thing with me too as well. Just from the first 10 seconds of the opening movie, just hearing Danny Elfman's score literally sends shivers down my spine. It takes me back to the time when I was a kid, when I first seen the Spider-Man movies. I truly feel like whenever I watch these movies, it takes me back to this childlike mindset that I had when I was much younger. I can legit watch this movie and repeat line after line with everybody. But doesn't necessarily mean that the movie is good. Just because you like a movie doesn't necessarily mean it's good. And just because you dislike a movie doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I believe it's all subjective and it's all an opinion based. And that's how I truly feel about the Sam Raimi trilogies. I feel like nowadays a lot of people tend to blindside their judgments based on just their nostalgic feelings towards the movie. I truly believe if you sat down and watched the Sam Raimi trilogies, you are just kind of looking forward to the certain parts that you like the most, or just the funny moments, or just the most iconic lines. And that's what I feel about the Sam Raimi movies. I'm not saying they suck, I'm quite saying the opposite. I truly love these movies. I have a soft spot for these movies. I loved every single one of the movie, from the first to the second and to the last. Every single part of this movie truly holds a special place in my heart. But even I myself know I am blinded by nostalgia. I know it's only aspects of this movie that I intertwine with my childhood that makes me truly have a joyous, childlike wonder towards this movie. But if you really stop and think about it and criticize the movie and look at it through an open lens, you definitely tend to see its flaws. If we're focusing on some of the flaws of the Sam Raimi trilogy, I'm not really gonna try to nitpick every single one of them, but there are some huge major factors in the movie. Starting off overall, just the relationship between Mary Jane and Peter Parker absolutely sucks. From the start of the movie, Peter Parker just kinda likes her because she's the popular girl. You know, he says that the girl next door and he's in love with her, but relatively he barely even talks to her, and barely even talked to her throughout the first half of the movie. And Mary Jane, she's just kind of like the popular chick. Yes, her father, she did have daddy issues and stuff like that. But relatively, Mary Jane belongs to the streets. This girl really hops from guy to guy in every single movie multiple times. The love story between them is pretty bad. Both actors, unfortunately, they don't even have that strong of a chemistry. And relatively, I felt like both of them would be better off separated from each other. I truly believe that Mary Jane is probably one of the worst characters in all of Sam Raimi's trilogy. She's just very annoying, she's very self-centered, she tries to make everything about her when she doesn't realize she's in a Spider-Man movie. I truly believe that her character is pretty much one-dimensional, very shallow, and I feel like the important parts to her that could have been really shown on screen, they only touch upon it here and there and kind of move along with the story. But overall, the relationship dynamic between Peter and Mary Jane is probably one of the worst things in the whole movie. And we just get endless and countless hours of them two just bickering. And there's only a few moments with those two when they're generally having fun. When it comes to Spider-Man overall, a big fundamental of his character that he suffers. And no matter how much he suffers, he still has that idea that with great power comes great responsibility. So no matter how much trials and tribulations is going on in his life, he still stands up for what is right and still puts on the mantle of Spider-Man and tries to save the day. That's probably one of my favorite aspects of Spider-Man. And when it comes to arguably the best Spider-Man movie in the trilogy, a lot of people tend to say it's Spider-Man 2 because Spider-Man 2 really embodies that idea on so many levels. But when you really stop and think about it, throughout just Spider-Man 2 or even just the Spider-Man trilogies overall, a lot of Peter's main problems are kind of caused by him in the first place. For example, watching the end of Spider-Man 2, there's a moment where Harry Osborn figures out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And instead of Peter just having a civil conversation with Harry and explaining what happened with his glider with Green Goblin, he just ignores it, then lets it go off into the third movie. I do know it does make sense in a writing standpoint, you want to build up something into the third movie, but it doesn't really work in terms of the real life, you know? And ultimately, when Harry does find out that Norman Osborn was the one who kind of killed himself, he comes and saves Peter, then ultimately costs him his life. And throughout the movie, there's so many countless things like that. For example, Peter Parker likes to keep Mary Jane away from him. You know, he likes to keep her at arm's length because he wants to protect her, and he doesn't feel that he's Spider-Man, because if he does, his enemies will come for her. But throughout the movies, the enemies always do that anyways. We see the Green Goblin go after her multiple times. We see people try to attack her multiple times, even before she knows he's Spider-Man. So regardless whether or not that he knew he was Spider-Man, MJ was always in danger. So to me, it's always little things like this. I truly felt like a lot of Peter's responsibilities and tragedies that came in his life was kind of caused by him. You know, I feel like if Peter Parker just really stopped, had a civil conversation, or just looked around him, a lot of his main problems in life could have been truly solved. Those are just kind of some of my points and some of my thoughts on how I feel about just the Spider-Man trilogy. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to go into too much detail of what's wrong with the trilogies because deep down, I love them. I can watch this movie from start to finish. It doesn't matter where I am, it doesn't matter what point in my life I'm watching them, I would enjoy it. Everything about the Sam Raimi trilogy really sparks something special in me. But I truly believe that this movie tends to be overhyped than what it truly is. As the years go by, it's definitely outdated. The effects definitely start to look more and more worse. And there's just little things that make no sense and just kind of ruin the conclusion of the story that they were trying to represent on screen. I'm not saying that it was a bad movie, because it's really not. They're very good movies, and for its time, it truly changed the landscape of just not superhero movies, but just movies overall in general. The Sam Raimi trilogy will always be a big part of superheroes and Spider-Man's overall. I'm very grateful for the movie. Sam Raimi is an amazing director, and he truly knew what he wanted to do with Spider-Man, and I believe he executed it properly. Spider-Man is truly beloved by multiple people all over the world. There's countless videos, breakdowns, reviews on movie. There's an entire subreddit dedicated to Spider-Man and just memes. I've seen people with countless YouTube channels making funny edits. Sam Raimi trilogy is truly loved. I truly see it more than, not even just a trilogy, I see it more than as like a cult. Something that truly changed the landscape of superhero comics and just movies in general. I'm very grateful for the trilogy, but I think it's time for people to stop making him seem better than what it actually is. In conclusion, whether you love or hate the Sam Raimi trilogy, whether it's your favorite adaptation of Spider-Man or your least favorite adaptation of Spider-Man, it's very undeniable that this is a huge shift and a huge part of Spider-Man overall. Even I myself, I still love these movies, man. I know I just made a whole video kind of nitpicking it and hating on it, but I genuinely love this movie. I love every single one of them, from the first to the second to the third. A lot of people don't like the third movie, but it's still one of my favorite Spider-Man movies to this date. I love everything about this movie. It's very classic, it's very charming. But even I myself know that is a biased perspective. I feel like a lot of people try to overhype this movie and make it seem like something that it's not. But I just truly felt like it's important to kind of make this review today, because I feel like people tend to overhype these movies so much that it makes them have open and Howard hatred to the other Spider-Man adaptations. So that's why I just kind of wanted to make this video today, just kind of talking to everyone, just kind of share my opinions on how I feel about the Sam Raimi trilogy. Tell me what you think about the trilogy down in the comments below. Do you agree with my point? Do you think it's overrated? Do you think it's underrated? Do you think it's fairly rated? What are your thoughts and opinions? Please comment down below. That'll be it for today's video. And don't forget to keep it real.